Hey everybody, I thought I'd create a video to show you how a paragraph of a vignette can be developed. This is from Grace's midway draft. This is the video that you hopefully have already seen that went over her student sample narrative, and hers was about a challenging time in her life related to career. And while your paper's on exactly on that topic, I thought it'd be kind of neat to take a look at how she organized this body paragraph that was a vignette, and what do we do with that information? How do we continue to grow it? Because remember, the draft that you saw was only a midway draft. It means it wasn't what she submitted as final, but it was something that she was working on as part of the drafting process. And so let's take a quick peek as a reminder. This is just an understanding of how you can imagine the pieces that go into body paragraphs in a narrative. You may not always have a topic sentence. For example, if you have dialogue that goes one line, somebody says something, then the next line somebody says something else, you're not going to have this shape. But these are pieces that can help you fulfill these larger vignettes and grow them into something nice and sort of chunky. So this is from Grace's essay. Let's take a peek at it. Let's see what we can do with it as if we were Grace ourselves. We don't write over other people's writing, generally speaking, but let's modify this as if we were the writer in question, and you're moving from like draft 1 to draft 2, or at the moment you've got these vignettes and you're taking them and you're trying to figure out, what do I do with this? Where do I break this up? Does this have enough? Is this too long? That kind of thing. So Grace said, a few days after my arrival, and she was talking about arrival in the United States, I thought of applying for jobs in some financial institutions around my area. Maybe, because we know from prior paragraphs, right, that Grace has a finance degree. Maybe we just stop there, we make that its own sentence, and we say that this is a topic sentence. We know what this paragraph is going to be about. And if you take a look at this paragraph is just a general statement that she's trying to find a job in her field. And so it's clear, it doesn't give too much information. We save that for the momentum of the middle of this paragraph. And remember, she's talking about her uncle. We could just say, but my uncle said that there was, my uncle, let me spell uncle right, said that there was much competition in such fields. Therefore, he advised, remember he tried to tell her to change her mind entirely, that I take a certified nurse's aid course with the hope that I might get work easier and faster. This is a piece of evidence, right? Right here. It's just one sentence, and it's just telling us what actually happened after. Let me change that into a different color just so you can kind of see the movement in this paragraph and what is happening there. So let's make that green. Green will be a piece of evidence. And so you'll notice by the shape of this, oops, I just keep doing all the things that I did not want to do. Okay, so there we go. So we've got that one piece of evidence. You may find in your vignette you have 3, 4, 5 sentences of evidence. You have a bigger event. This is just a quick snapshot. This was a small conversation, right? But then we have a bit of the unpacking that's happening after it. And she says, for my culture, it's mostly a babe before complaining, especially when you're new in an area. It's presumed that I had family that I met here. They know the system better. So this part right here is this unpacking. It's the explanation of how she processed this information. And so you can see that in this vignette, Grace is following a fairly logical shape here. But watch what happens. She now goes into another detail, which is perfectly fine. It doesn't have to follow this shape and then be done with it. As long as you've got this topic sentence, for example, that allows readers, if they only read this paragraph by itself, to make sense of it on its own. It makes it a standalone paragraph. We could do something to make it even stronger. We could say something like that. So now, if this paragraph was read entirely by itself, readers would be like, oh, this makes perfect sense. Now, when you have those little tiny dialogue paragraphs of one line, one line, one line, those don't stand on their own. If you take what somebody said out of the context of the whole conversation, you probably won't understand what they were saying. It's important that when we're thinking about vignettes, we're thinking about these ones that don't include dialogue. You can kind of see the shape of what's happening here. And look at the bouncing in this paragraph. Oops, I did not mean to do that. Back and forth. between a piece of data and a reflection of what the data means. And so topic sentence in yellow, piece of data in green, Grace's understanding, contextualizing that for our audience. And then one more piece of data, and then more explanations of what it means. And you can see this is sort of nice back and forth. It provides balance. It allows the reader to absorb her understanding before we move to a new detail. And so when you think of your own vignettes, I want you to look at something like this to show where can you go from that early rough draft. Look at what you posted in the vignette section, and now what can you do to grow it, to modify it? Because I know one of the biggest fears students have is, I don't know if I can write 4 pages. Well, of course you can. And it's about that balance. Can you have a feeling and then an example? Sure, and a feeling and then an example, of course. It just depends on your situation and how you understand it. So see what you can do to provide more balance in your vignette paragraphs like what we see here visually. Reach out and let me know if you have any questions.